It's worked in the past. We use the same public health approach to dramatically cut automobile fatalities. We still drive where we need to go, but we have seatbelts and speed limits that help us get there alive. Public health experts are already working to address gun violence in real time.
I stated over a year ago that they were going to use your health as a reason for gun control. Welcome to another installment of the Connecticut Gun Bench. Today's video is brought to you by P.A.N. Firearms, LLC. P.A.N. Firearms, your NRA certification of multifaceted gun training. You can reach us at 203-300-6343 or use our website at www.panfirearmsllc.com. As always, there'll be a link in the description box below. And if you like channel, like content, what I do here, you can support me with the link. Everything's appreciated. And once again, I want to give my PSA for Connecticut residents. If you plan on getting your Connecticut pistol permit, please do it before July 2024. Get your training done because the state has changed the requirements and made it more expensive, much harder, and much longer for no good reason whatsoever. So if you want to get your Connecticut, well, there is a good reason to prevent the average person from getting a permit so they can buy a gun. That's ultimately what the goal is, but but please get it done before July 2024. Let's talk about this. Now, 3 or 4 days ago, the Senate Judiciary had a committee meeting on gun violence. And what they were trying to do was equate gun violence as a health epidemic. Now, if you remember, and you've been watching me long enough, you remember I did videos way back where the CDC was doing a research on gun violence as it applies to public health. And I said they're going to use this as the next crutch to push for gun control, circumvent the Constitution. Because now they're trying to say that gun violence is a health epidemic, which of course, you can open up all kinds of funding that will never really go to address the mental health issue that we have in this country. It'll just go towards basically restricting your rights under the Second Amendment. I want to play this clip. This is Dick Durbin, who is a flaming anti-gun. You should know all about this guy. But I want to play a clip from him and what he said, and then we're going to come back.
Has been taken away too soon by the pull of a trigger, and they've seen the aftermath of bullets tearing through bone like it's tissue paper. In cities like Chicago, dealing with the constant drumbeat of gun violence has turned these public health professionals into battlefield experts. Chicago faces the same challenges as many other cities and towns. In fact, many rural areas have even higher rates of gun violence than the urban areas. Across the country, gun violence is a public health epidemic, plain and simple. In 2022, there were more than 48,000 firearm-related deaths in the United States. That's 132 Americans every day dying from gun violence. More than half of firearm-related deaths were suicides. More than 4 out of 10 were homicides. And guns are now the #1 cause of death among America's children and teenagers. Not auto accidents, not cancer, guns. Collecting data, identifying trends, developing strategies to prevent harm, reducing risk, sharing these practices, this is how you combat an epidemic. It's worked in the past. We use the same public health approach to dramatically cut automobile fatalities. We still drive where we need to go, but we have seatbelts and speed limits that help us get there alive.
Heard that and you saw that. Let me start off right off the jump. He's a liar. He's an absolute liar. Guns are not the #1 killer of children. Because if you notice his language there. He said the #1 killer of children and teens. That justifies them including 18 and 19-year-olds in the tally of so-called children who are victims of gun violence. That's how they justify it. Because when this report first came out, all they would say is, it's the #1 killer of children. And then people started saying, well, wait a minute now. 18-year-olds, that's not a child. You 18, you can get married, you can go vote, you can go to war. So now it's children and teens. That's how they justify it. Boosting their number through false data. They added 18 and 19-year-olds to the tally, and then they eliminated child deaths under one, the first year, because, you unfortunately have crib deaths and other things like that. All of that was eliminated, and they added 18, 19-year-olds to get the result that they wanted. That's how they came to that. I've talked about that a lot. It's a false narrative, and it's a lie. But the biggest issue, and I've probably always spoken of this, is the fact that this focus on violence as it pertains to firearms. People are losing their lives every day. Every day people are losing their lives for all different kinds of reasons, but we only care when you're killed by a firearm. We'll parade you around and let you meet the president only if your child is killed by a firearm, or if somebody you know is injured by a firearm. Because if you're killed any other way, we don't give a damn about you. I mean, you just look to Waukesha, Wisconsin. Look to Idaho. There's 4 kids killed by one person with a knife. We don't talk about them no more. We don't talk about them. We don't talk about the people in Waukesha. We don't even talk about the Boston Marathon bombing anymore. We don't talk about that. We damn sure don't talk about the Murrah building bombing. And they keep talking about how these large capacity magazines, assault weapons, are the choice of blah, blah. Nonsense. More people are killed by blunt force objects, hands and feet, than any firearm. And it's just amazing to me that they focus so much on so-called assault weapons when they account for 2 to 3% of all murders by firearms, period. So what are they really trying to do? It's clear what they're trying to do. The fact that they ignore other people's deaths, people who die by other methods, and focus only on guns, and then specifically assault weapons, tells you exactly what they're up to. There's nothing to do with your safety, and you heard me say that over and over again. But I want to play a clip from Ted Cruz, because Ted Cruz nails this thing down as to what the real problem is. Let's watch that.
Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are at yet another hearing called by Democrats on gun control. Understand that today's Democrats in the Senate, these are not your father's Democrats. There are no moderate Democrats left in Congress. Today's Democrats, when it comes to guns, their objective is to disarm law-abiding citizens. They simultaneously embrace policies that release violent criminals from jail. They're not interested in locking up murderers. They're not interested in locking up gangbangers. They're not interested in locking up violent criminals. Instead, they systematically support policies that release violent criminals. By the way, if you are hesitant to believe me when I say this, perhaps you'll believe the mayor of Dallas. The mayor of Dallas, Eric Johnson, who's a friend, is a lifelong Democrat. He's African-American mayor, elected in Dallas, been a Democrat his whole life until just recently. He left the Democrat Party and became a Republican. Now, let me read you why Mayor Johnson became a Republican. Quote, "Unfortunately, many of our cities are in disarray. Mayors and other local elected officials have failed to make public safety a priority or to exercise fiscal restraint. Most of these local leaders are proud Democrats who view cities as laboratories for liberalism rather than as havens for opportunity and free enterprise. Too often, local tax dollars are spent on policies that exacerbate homelessness, coddle criminals, and make it harder for ordinary people to make a living. And too many local Democrats insist on virtue signaling, proposing half-baked government programs that aim to solve every single societal ill, and on finding new ways to thumb their noses at Republicans at the state and federal level." I have to say to an ordinary person, the political ideology of today's Democrats makes no sense. Why your priority is disarming a law-abiding citizen but not going after the violent criminal. And to be clear, it is the radical left that advocates abolishing the police and defunding the police. And when I say there are no moderate Democrats left, The Biden administration has nominated not one, not two, but three of the leading advocates of abolishing the police to senior positions at the U.S. Department of Justice. Every single Democrat on this committee voted to confirm every single one of them, but not just on this committee. Every single Democrat in the United States Senate voted to confirm all three of the Biden nominees, including Rachel Rollins, nominated by the U.S. Attorney in Massachusetts, one of the leading advocates of abolishing the police, as a local prosecutor. She put out a list of violent crimes that she wouldn't prosecute. You know what? We're not having a hearing on the impact of Soros prosecutors releasing violent criminals from jail. We're not having a hearing on carjacking in Washington, D.C., because the Democrat City Council lowered the penalty for carjacking, lowered the penalty for murder. We're not having a hearing on Congressman Henry Cuellar, a Democrat from Texas, who was carjacked in Washington, D.C. at 9:30 at night. We're also not having a hearing on the Antifa and Black Lives Matter riots across the country, because to Democrats, when stores are being looted, when police cars are being firebombed, when police officers are being murdered, that's not a crisis if they agree with the ideology of the criminals. Instead, their objective is they want to take away the firearm from the single mom who's taking the subway home at night, who that is the only prevention she has against the violent criminals that the Democrats are unleashing. And by the way, to give you an underscoring of it, look, we have a mental health crisis in this country. I've repeatedly introduced legislation to improve school safety, to invest to double the number of police officers in schools. Democrats objected. To invest $15 billion in mental health counselors in schools. Democrats objected. Their priority is not stopping the criminals. Their priority is disarming law-abiding citizens. And by the way, they call it a public health crisis because they want to put supposed experts in charge of disarming you. The Second Amendment in the Bill of Rights is not a public health crisis. What is a public health crisis is the crime rates that are skyrocketing because Democrats keep letting murderers and violent criminals out of jail. But Dr. Rainey, let me ask you a question in terms of public health. Right now today, what's the leading cause of death for Americans age 18 to 45?
I believe that it's opioids.
It is drug overdoses. Last year, more than 100,000 Americans died of drug overdoses. 70% of that came from Chinese fentanyl that is flooding across our southern border because this administration has opened up our southern border to 8.6 million illegal immigrants, has enriched the drug traffickers. Do you think, Dr. Rainey, that fentanyl flooding across our open border on the south that has killed collectively 100,000 overdoses last year, do you think that's a public health crisis?
Absolutely. Synthetic fentanyl is a major crisis, and Senator Reid from my home state of Rhode Island has been a leader in trying to stop the supply of synthetic fentanyl.
Except he hasn't, because Senator Reid, along with every other Democrat, supports Joe Biden's open borders, because when we try to secure the borders, they block it over and over and over again. And the criminals who come across, who are taking people's lives, that is because the Democrats refuse to enforce the law.
Heard that and you saw that, and there it is. There it is. Most of this gun violence, let's go along with their narrative and their monikers. Most of this gun violence comes from inner liberal cities run by Democrats. That's where most of this comes from. They just rivet themselves in joy every time there's a shooting in one of these cities, because that's how they get this crazy mass shooting number that they always gloat about. It's a bunch of crap. A lot of this stuff is just inner city violence, which they don't give a damn about because it's been going on for decades. And now this is just typical. I'm sorry. I'm actually not sorry. The only time they find any value in black people is when it supports their narrative. Other than that, they're going to give a damn what's going on in those communities. And that's a fact. But you got these people letting these criminal teenagers run the streets. There's havoc out there. And I'm just going to have to go with the fact that you just want it this way, because how else can you get the numbers that you need to push emotional fodder to pass laws that have nothing to do with the actual problem? That's how you do it. But I found this to be fascinating, but I warned, over a year ago, I warned that this is the direction they're going to go. Remember when Cuomo did the same thing, claiming that gun violence is an epidemic, which freed up all kinds of funding for him to push anti-gun narratives. That was the whole point. That's why they're trying to do it now on the federal level. But let me know what you think. As always, you can leave your comments in the comment section below. And as always, any statements of violence or statements that lead to violence will be removed. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you're notified the next time a video goes live. I will see you on the next one. Peace.